Bodog, what's happening, buddy?
How you doing, guys? Nick, Rosie, thanhanks for having me. Good to be here.
Hey, our
Thanks for
pleasure.
coming on.
Well, let's start right there. We're talking about the too many men on the ice penalties. What do you attribute that to?
I have no idea, man. I used to think, and Rosie, I don't know what you think about it, but I thought like 2 a year was a lot or something like that. You know what I mean? To have like 8 at before Christmas time, it's
wild.
insane. And I mean, regardless if it's like the change from last night or whatever the hell's going on, it's got to stop because it's nonsense. It's just, I don't know. I know Babcock used to have a system where like the centerman on the line that was coming up, he would generally go on the ice first, regardless of who came off. And that could kind of mix things up a little bit. But whatever it is, man, it's just it's a bad look. It's kind of a disorganized look, and it kind of reflects on Sheldon Keefe because whatever the hell's going on, it makes the coach look disorganized behind the bench. And whether that's fair or not fair, that's the optics of it. And when you have that many, it's just like, and if he ever gets on the real hot seat, it could be like, how can we keep this going? Like, this is insane. Like every game with Duthie, I talked to him on the panel. I'm like, man, that's 3 or 4, like too many men. And then it's like 4 or 5. And then it's like up to 8. I'm like, this is officially nonsense.
I'd like to see if it's more probable at home, and that would tell me that he's trying to last minute flip the lines to do some line matching with the last change or whatever. But on the fly, you know who's coming up. If you're not that guy, you're probably sitting there talking to your line mates quick or doing something, and you're not expecting to go right back out, and they're getting confused somehow. They don't know what's going on, and that just screams the head coach to me. And if it happens on the back end, then it's the guy running the D. But it's like 40% of the games you're taking too many men. You just can't spot that to the teams in the NHL and not expect to pay dearly.
Absolutely. And I was pretty clear. Like, I knew what line I was playing against. And when I was at the top of my game, I was playing with top line centermen. And if Mike Modano or Joe Sakic or Forsberg were going over the boards or one of his line mates, I kind of knew that I was going up. It's just like no one else is going up. It just doesn't seem that complicated. But to have that many, that's just one little thing, guys. I think there's 3 or 4 things that they really need to clean up. But that's on the top 3 or 4 on the list because it's just a goofy look. It's like, why is no one else around the league have that many? Why do you have so many? It's just a bad look, and they better clean it up.
And it feels like it's borderline incumbent, not even borderline on the head coach. What did you think of Keefe going like full Pat Quinn behind the bench last night?
I just think he's seen enough of the nonsense. I've gone through games and prep for the panel work and the pregame shows and just simple things like the amount of times that this team turns the puck over. It's alarming. I mean, if you break it down and you're actually looking for it, like and I titled it like valuing the puck, and it's so hard to get the puck. And when you do, and the thing I can't figure out is these guys are like, they want to be a possession team. They want to hold on to the puck. They want to make these plays, but they're just careless with it. And I think Sheldon Keefe had finally seen enough of it where Tyler Bertuzzi just lost control inside the blue line. But what I don't understand is there's 600 examples of that over the last 5 games. I don't know why it took them so long to lose it. It's just, and it just goes back to coaching again. Like, we were talking about grades last night on the panel about the different players and the coach. And I think, and Rosie, I don't know what your thoughts on this are, but like you were a strong forechecking player. You were a tough guy. And it's like, the coach isn't going to tell you how to fight or help you fight or know when to do it. That's just your own little thing. Or for a skilled player, that's not really coaching. But what happens away from the puck, guys, like turnovers and systematic play and aggressiveness and demanding the same thing out of every player, I think that's on the coach. And it's just hasn't been there this year. And I think he finally decided, and I don't know why it took him so long. I was kind of happy to see it where it's like, enough's enough. Like you want to keep the puck. Like that's why they can't put teams away. They're up 2-0 and all of a sudden it ends up 2-2 and they either win or lose. And they just have so many opportunities where they don't hang on to that puck. And I think he just finally saw enough where he said, screw this, I'm going to lose my mind.
Yeah, and it seems like he's tiptoeing around criticizing the team. He wants to be that player's coach. It's the new NHL with these younger type of players that react differently to criticism. Okay, fine, but it's still the NHL. They're still men. They still get paid a lot to do a job, and when they're messing around like that, I mean, I love to see it again too. Like, lose it on the bench. This is a high intensity, high emotion game, and you need that sometimes. And it to your point, when you have what you have and you need that identity of, okay, we got that 2-goal lead. Now we know what to do. We know how to protect it. We know how to support each other. We know how to be on the D side of the puck. And they just don't have any of that. It's like, oh, we're winning, like street hockey style. Like, let me see if I can thread this one behind my god. And it's head scratching. And like, how many times does it have to blow up in your face to realize maybe we should cut that shit out? And maybe it's because the coach never calls them out and it's always acceptable and they're always going to try it. So now, I don't know, if he clamps down a little bit, that's the last thing that's the one thing you have to try. Like, lay the hammer on these guys, let them hear it when they're pulling that roller hockey bullshit, and give it to them, let them know, and they'll maybe, they need that and they can snap out of it and say, all right, I got to tighten up with all that garbage turnover stuff and start playing the way you need to play to win in the NHL.
But Rosie, the thing is, like, all the playoff losses where you see teams the way they play in the playoffs, and teams like the Vegas Golden Knights and the Florida Panthers, like, how many times and how many years do you have to see it and watch it where it's like, if this group of players, and I was thinking about it last night, like, just to get out of this funk, if they really just simplified their game and played a really simple game and just battled their asses off and thought about one-on-one individual battles and simplify and work and grind on a cycle game, and then their skill can come out after that. It's like, once you get a team tired, then you could make a skill play. But to think skill first has burned them so many times, and it just doesn't work. These guys, as good as they are, they're not Mario. I played against Mario where he could skill it. He could skill it and just, he would put his arm up on the boards at the far blue line and rest on the boards, and then all of a sudden get a breakaway and score. But there's only one Mario. These guys are good, but they're not that good. And the way that other teams check if they don't have skill, like, you're just not going to get away with it. So if they just have just caveman hockey, I call it, like, get it in, get after it. Austin Matthews, I saw him throw a check and he destroyed that D-man against the boards. I'm like, just give a little more, but more of that. You're not scoring right now, so do something physical. Like, just help your team in a different way. And it's almost like they totally just need to change the approach of what they're doing out there and just work your ass off and be a hardworking, grinding team, and don't give up a lot. And see how that works. Like, you've tried this skill nonsense for so long, and it might get you into the playoffs. In the past, it's gotten them 105 points, top of the Atlantic all the time or around there, but it doesn't win squat in the playoffs. So I don't know why they think that that's a way to succeed. I have no idea. And maybe finally now they might be realizing they got to approach it a different way. Like, why not?
Yeah, you hope so, because you play that way you're talking. I mean, people are screaming for that. Like, where's the intensity? Where's the chasing it down, like, as fast as you can, running their D-men and getting in those battles in the corner and cycling it around and, just making the smart play, the high percentage play. It's always like, oh, why is he doing that? Or, God, did he just try that? And like you say, they don't value puck possession. I mean, when you get that puck, that's important. To be so nonchalant about it, and that the turnovers kill you. You know that the fancy stuff kills you. If you play like you just described, with all the skill that they have, they're going to get their cookies. You're going to play like that, and the chances are going to come. You're going to find your openings, and those guys will take care of business when those openings happen. And wow, well, that's the team that organization looks like on paper. That's what it's supposed to be. But when they come out on the ice all the time and do something completely different, I think that's what gets fans in such a tizzy, because it's basically unacceptable and there's no reason for it. And everyone's capable of playing the way we're describing, but no one seems to be interested in doing it.
I know, isn't like Florida living proof of a team that could sort of flip the script, where they were sort of baby shit a couple of years ago, soft as shit, and then Paul Maurice comes in, and that's why I wonder if it could be the coach. Like, the buy-in from the Panthers, if you remember a couple years ago, it was like 7-5 hockey games all the time. You would never think in a world where they'd win 2-1 grinding games, but that's what they did in their run last year. Like, that's, you start to wonder, is it the coaching, right?
Nicky, like, there's one other factor in that equation. Okay.
Okay.
If you go to Florida Panthers and they were winning 7-5 and 6-2 and all this nonsense, Jonathan Huberdeau was a part of that. He was getting points. He was a 115 point guy. And guess what part of the switch was? It was Paul Maurice coming in, but it's also Matthew Tkachuk buying in and saying, you got to finish every check. Every puck has got to be contested because that is our only chance to win right now. And if we do that, and if Bobrovsky plays the way he can, and the power play is productive, and their productive guys can be opportunistic and score goals at key times in games, that's the recipe for success. And that can take you all the way to the Stanley Cup final. But to think skill first is, I think, completely insane. And one example of it is, and I don't want to just pile on top of Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner, but I believe it was the series against the Florida Panthers where it was a tight game, and Mitch tried some kind of back pass, and then Austin Matthews tried to flip it in the air in his own zone and juggle it out of the zone, and it ended up in the back of their net. And it's like, why would you ever think that that was going to be a play in the Stanley Cup playoffs that would ever work? So I don't know, guys. I mean, we've gotten this far with this group to ask them to completely change the way they play. There is some high-end talent, man. It's some of the best in the league. But just the simple philosophy of work before skill. Like Claude Noel, I had him on the panel one night, and he used that phrase one night. It was just work before skill. And it's very simple, but it's very to the point, and it's very effective. If your best players like just work their ass off and their skill shines after that, you're always going to have a chance to win.
And it's to your point, the quote I always like is hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. And there's two shining examples: the Florida Panthers, the way they work and the way they put their game towards a playoff style of hockey, and the Toronto Maple Leafs. It's polar opposites. Yeah, like you say, the Maple Leafs can get 110 points in the regular season, but you bring that kind of play into the playoffs, it's a different ball game. Why do you think they've floundered every single goddamn season for years and years and years playing that style of hockey with this group? It doesn't work in the playoffs, and that's why fans and people around the Leafs Nation are pulling their hair out. So change.
I know. You would think it would only take one playoff series for like a coming to Jesus meeting from the coach or somebody to say, okay, guys, I let you try your way, and now it's going to be my way, and it's non-negotiable. And if you don't want to buy in and do it, then maybe we got to find somewhere else for you, because I don't know. I think I always say, guys, in pro sports, of all the big pro sports, it's like NHL playoffs and what works in the playoffs. It completely, the switch flips in the playoffs where the game is completely different. Like, there's a lot of no-hitters in the regular season, man. Like, there's some nights where it's like, this game basically isn't worth watching. I think the games this year have been good. There's been some intensity, but there's still some doozies. But as soon as playoff time starts, every time you touch the puck when you play a quality team, a team that's real deal, and they're serious about stuff, you're going to get your head plastered to the glass. So do you want to be involved in something like that or not? Because that's what it ends up being about. Everybody's got all these fancy ways of looking at the game. And I'm not discrediting their information or saying they're not smart people, because they are all very smart. And some of the stuff they pull up is very good. But when it comes to playoff, man, you can just throw that stuff right in the garbage. I'm sorry. That's just the way it is.
Oh, last one before we get you out here. And Rosie, I want you in on this conversation too. If you're Max Domi, do you think twice about doing that again, where you just get pumped and then you're fucking taunting Sam Bennett about his lid? Would you do that? Oh?
I don't know. My hair's so gray right now. I wouldn't be talking about anybody's hair, but I thought it was great for Max that he just said, there's been so many times where we're questioning, is anybody just going to do anything?
Yeah. So
at least he's got the stones to show up. I don't think the fight turned out the way he wanted to, but there's been so many times where it's like, does anybody want to grab a guy like Sam Bennett? And it's either like we have a heavyweight or we don't, and nobody in the middle of the lineup wants to do something like that. So I don't think, if you're a fan of the Maple Leafs or the players on the bench, you're happy that you're at least standing up. And last night, I just hope it could be a stepping stone where it's like first period was garbage. I thought they were getting beat on individual battles, and it was like,
Mhm.
oh God, here we go again. But it's almost like they had to get the rock bottom to say, we've had enough of this garbage. Let's sort our way out of it. So I was happy to see Max do that.
Yeah, when we were talking about Sam Bennett and kind of that revenge thing from the playoffs with Matthew Nyes, my mind went right to Max Domi. Like, there's a guy that could get in his face and say, hey, buddy, remember us? Like, and he did, to his absolute credit. And I don't know if I thought he was a little more skilled at the tough stuff than he is. I remember him just KOing Kessler back in the day. I remember him throwing hard and confidently with his head up. I mean, he went after Sam Bennett there and ended up with his head between his legs, holding on to his hamstrings with one of his gloves still on. I'm like, what the hell were you preparing for, Max? Like, you were going after Sam and you ended up in that position. I mean, shit happens. I usually don't care about the outcome of a fight. But like, I kind of thought he had a little more understanding of that job than that. But again, things happen. And then afterwards at the penalty box, I just think that's just immaturity right there. I don't know why you'd kind of eat your lunch a little bit and just go to the penalty box, have the boys banging on the boards.
I would just
and,
be
hey,
going to the
going.
penalty box. But as far as a fight, I think he just lost his balance, and I understand.
Yeah.
I think he had an understanding that he was in a bad spot right there. But Sam Bennett, guys, is an example of a player that came into the league, and he was this high-scoring junior player. And it's almost like he was one of those guys where it was like Calgary was like, oh, if he stays, if he goes, that's fine too. And then he became this physical presence with the Florida Panthers where it's like he'll beat the crap out of you. He'll finish his check every time. And you want to talk about a guy that's valuable in playoffs? Like, that's a guy right there that figured out what works in the league. And now I would have that guy on my team any damn day of the week because I think come playoff time, he can hurt somebody. He can take someone out of the opposition's lineup. I just think he's really valuable. And he figured it out, and good on him.
Couldn't do a pull-up, right? Oh, couldn't do a pull-up, and he's come a long way here.
Yeah, but
right?
he can punch your face in and separate your shoulder with a hit.
Make sure to check out more of our content right here on the Leafs Nation YouTube page. We got long-form interviews, we got clips, we got epic rants by Jay Rosehill. We simply have it all, and don't forget, you can find out much more at theleafsnation.com. Thanks so much for watching.